Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today we've got some severe weather dominating the Australian weather forecast. Western Australia last night lashed by very dangerous thunderstorms which impacted the Perth metro area, and an east coast low now developing offshore from New South Wales and Queensland. All of that plus more coming up in today's forecast update. If you haven't already, then please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. Your support is greatly appreciated. Starting things off with New South Wales and Queensland at this time, we do have that east coast low that I have been talking about for the last couple of days, developing slowly offshore at this time. It is a very strong low pressure area that's now situated just offshore from the New South Wales Victoria border, and you'll see that if I flick on the pressure isobars on this map here, or head over to the rain forecast, actually you can see it is just starting to develop offshore at this time, and it's driving a lot of rainfall around its eastern side. Thankfully the eastern side is not an area impacting land at this time. The only location that's really receiving significant impacts from this weather system is Lord Howe Island, and they are actually some pretty nasty impacts. Winds already quite strong there, near gale force 36 kilometers an hour, but gusting towards 70 kilometers an hour at this time. So gale force wind gusts being experienced there, and the worst of the weather has not yet reached the island. So residents on Lord Howe Island expecting some nasty conditions to come through today. We've also got some nasty conditions expected for the Victoria, New South Wales coastline, and also the Tasmanian coastline, which I'm about to break down for you right now. Some heavy rainfall has fallen through there. The Sydney metro area, up to 100 millimeters, has fallen just inland. It's pretty much neck and neck with what the forecast was saying a couple of days ago. No major discrepancy there, and we all knew it was coming. I mean, the forecast of a low pressure system lining itself up offshore from New South Wales, it was always going to lead to a very wet Saturday evening, Sunday morning. So the forecast, it really didn't have much to be wrong about, and in this case it was bang on, more or less, from the Access G3 and the Eastern Blair forecast model. I know the Access G3 was calling for up to 200 millimeters at some stage, but no, it wasn't really a possibility, and it does look like less rainfall has fallen than that. But that's not the rainfall completely done yet. You can see this low pressure area is expected to deepen throughout the course of today and expand slightly as well as it heads down towards Tasmania, towards the Bass Strait actually, giving Victoria and Tasmania, especially the east coast of Tasmania, some much needed rainfall by the looks of things. And by much needed rainfall, I'm talking up towards 50 to 80 millimeters or so throughout the course of this evening and into tomorrow morning. Should be easing it off by Monday evening, and at the absolute latest for locations, Tuesday morning, the rainfall will be completely easing off by then. And it also looks like there's another low pressure system in the Tasman Sea, or the northern extremities of the Tasman Sea, creeping down from the Coral Sea, which is the remnants of the cloud that's going to break away from this big frontal system here. I mean, this low pressure system is kind of getting too big for itself, and you already start to see a little extra pool of cloud starting to develop up here north of Lord Howe Island, between Norfolk Island and the Queensland coastline. It looks like on the rainfall forecast here that's going to separate into its own low pressure system, and the fronts here are going to disconnect, and there's going to be two simultaneous low pressure systems in the Tasman Sea. Thankfully though, as with all of these fronts, the nasty weather is on the south and the eastern sides, and it looks like those keep well away from the New South Wales and Victoria coastlines. Just a bit of rainfall expected for the eastern extremities of Victoria and also for Tasmania, but nothing crazy for New South Wales is expected on that front. We'll talk about rainfall accumulation now. The worst of the weather is most certainly over, but still throughout the course of today expecting an extra 25 to 50 millimeters to fall along the New South Wales coastline up towards Newcastle and Sydney. And if we were to take a look at some of those observations here, I mean, this is Gosford here, 93 millimeters so far in the past 24 hours. Some very heavy rainfall has fallen, and still rainfall accumulations between 25 to 50 millimeters, quite widespread. As you get further inland, the rainfall does drop off a little bit, and further south as well, the rainfall drops off too, but still a lot of totals up towards 50 to 60 millimeters, and as we saw with Gosford, up to 100 millimeters has been reported, with a little bit more rainfall on the cards throughout the course of today. Like I said, between 25 and 50 millimeters. I'd say the absolute wettest is 50 millimeters, and like I said with this weather system, the rainfall is not going to be penetrating too far inland. It'll get jammed up against those mountains along the New South Wales coastline, and it will stop there. Still a little bit of rainfall expected up towards Tamworth, a shower or two there today. Grafton as well, a shower or two. The Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast expecting relatively dry conditions, and as you get up towards the Wide Bay, Bundaberg, Gladstone, Rockhampton region, you're looking at between 2 and 20 millimeters throughout the course of today. A lot of that rainfall has already fallen though. Lord Howe Island though, it's about to get really quite nasty weather. 50 millimeters millimetres expected throughout the course of today, most of which has not fallen yet, so the rainfall is really going to pick up there. A little bit of rainfall also expected around Mallacoota on the eastern parts of the Victorian coastline and the Gippsland region. Over the next 3 days, the rainfall will start to pick up there as well on Tasmania. We're expecting a maximum of 50 to 60 millimetres or so. The Access G3 expecting slightly more rainfall, I believe. Yeah, they're talking more sort of 70 to 80 millimetres. And also on the Victorian coastline, just offshore, you're looking at totals up towards 100 millimetres there. I think the Access G3 is kind of overestimating on this part here. A mix of all three major forecast models between the Eastern Rebef, the GFS, and the Access G3, which is what I use to make these forecasts, by the way, seems to be the most accurate solution at this time, where we're looking at 50 millimetres around Bicheno, up towards St Helens, around the Coles Bay, Burnie sort of region on the eastern parts of Tasmania. Hobart could expect a total of 30 to 40 millimetres of rainfall, and up towards the Furnex Islands as well. They're expecting a healthy 20 millimetres too. And as we take a look at the drought monitoring maps as well, we're under extreme drought conditions in parts of Tasmania, but unfortunately they're not going to be getting drought relief from this rainfall. Exceptional to extreme drought conditions are currently being experienced on the western coast. The eastern coast actually looking quite healthy at this time in terms of rainfall, and that's probably because of the rainfall that has already fallen there over the last couple of days, or taking into account the rainfall that will fall over the next 48 hours there. But some good rainfall expected there, and also some good wind gusts too. I mean, taking a look at this low pressure system just offshore, it's going to have peak wind gusts up to 125 kilometres an hour, but damaging winds are expected anywhere between Newcastle down to Sydney, Wollongong inclusive, and then down towards Batemans Bay, Narooma, Bega, and Mallacoota on the Victorian side of things, south of New South Wales, and then on the Furnex Islands as well, wind gusts up towards 70 kilometres an hour can be expected, and on the Tasmanian coastline too, as a low pressure system goes closer to the coastline, expecting 70 kilometre an hour wind gusts too. Big waves as well are also a possibility Monday afternoon and into Tuesday morning. We could be seeing waves peak at around 3 to 4 metres there. Nothing insane, nothing ridiculously crazy where the whole world's going to stop, but still some pretty big waves can be expected. Boating, fishing, and any shore-based activity or ocean-going activity is kind of advised against in terms of the weather that we're going to be expecting down there. So make sure you are staying away from the coastline and staying safe in the comfort of your own home. But yeah, that is kind of the wrap up on the weather for this part of New South Wales. At least in the next 3 days, there is a little bit of rainfall expected in the 5 to 10 day forecast period, where we could get another low pressure system later on this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, setting itself up offshore from New South Wales. But the uncertainty does remain a little bit too high for me to make a good comment on this low pressure system, at least between the Eastern Rebef and the GFS forecast model. They really can't make their minds up on what's actually going on here. In other words, I'm not going to be commenting on this weather situation until I have all of the details to make an accurate forecast. But just a heads up, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, later this week and into early next week, expecting a little bit of rainfall on the New South Wales coastline from another but much weaker low pressure system that's going to get itself offshore from Sydney. In terms of general weather around Australia, we're going to take a look at rainfall accumulation for the next 10 days. A little bit of rainfall coming through in the next 48 hours for parts of South Australia, unfortunately missing Adelaide, but giving the Eyre Peninsula a good 10 to 15 millimetres of much needed rainfall, that's for sure. But yeah, the majority of the populated areas on South Australia miss out on the significant rainfall. No rainfall for far north Queensland. I mean, this is the first time on the forecast where I've seen below 10 millimetres of rainfall for the 10-day forecast. The GFS has dropped that big trough that was going to drive 200 millimetres on shore, and I did expect that to happen. I didn't think that was going to be something on the forecast, but it does look like there is less rainfall now on the forecast up in far north Queensland. Northern Territory remaining high and dry as well. A little bit of rainfall moving through Western Australia over the next 24 to 36 hours, and that will result in some good accumulations up to 25 millimetres in the Pilbara and the Kimberley region. So if you're grazing up there, just note that there could be a little bit of minor flooding in some areas, just a little bit more rainfall to top off what has happened on the wet season, because it will be happening in a relatively short and sharp period of time. Now, Western Australia is kind of the sore thumb in terms of the Australian weather scene right now. I know there is a lot of severe weather happening, but last night was something else. I mean, the lightning show was crazy. Driving home from the western suburbs last night, it was very, very bright, the lightning overhead, and quite loud as well. We got some good rainfall as well. My rain gauge has picked up 70 millimetres overnight, so let me know how much rainfall your location has picked up too. And just take a look at some of the rain gauges in the Perth metro area. I know they don't display it on the windy.com page, but we've still been seeing some rainfall rainfall accumulations above 50 to 60 millimetres. I think Bickley's copped a healthy 60 millimetres as well. In other words, very good rainfall has fallen, not necessarily as much as initially expected, but last night certainly a wild one, and very good news. This rainfall has made it quite far inland as well. It's right now moving over communities in the eastern parts of the wheat belt. In fact, it's heading into towards the goldfields right now, dropping healthy accumulations there. Very good rainfall has materialised, and it looks like it is going to be a good start to the agricultural seasons. And there's some more severe weather coming throughout the course of today. The shower band from this cold front is going to sweep up from the southern coast at around 3 to 4 p.m. for the southern parts of the state. Around the south coastal regions, the weather will be at its worst around 3 to 4 p.m. between Augusta and Albany. It might even extend as far over as Bremer Bay or Hopetown as you get closer to Esperance. But it looks like this big shower band that's going to sweep up from the south has already passed over Perth. So we're waking up to conditions that are a lot calmer than what we once thought a couple of days ago on the forecast. And it looks like today we're going to see intermittent showers with a little bit of sunshine thrown in there too. The damaging wind threat, I say, has eased for the Perth metro area, so you can probably start moving your outdoor furniture back around. And I don't think we're going to be seeing damaging wind gusts above 90 kilometres an hour again for the Perth metro area for at least a couple of days. But just be noted, just take notice of the severe weather warning. The Bureau of Meteorology hasn't dropped that just yet. They only just erased their severe thunderstorm warning. Whether they're running a few hours behind or they're seeing something that I'm not in the forecast models here, I'm not 100% sure, but it does look like the severe weather threat has eased by all measures. I mean, just take a look at the radar here. There are some heavy showers moving through the Perth area. However, they don't look too extreme, and it looks like they will be easing off as the day goes on. But certainly a night of wild weather, that's for sure, for the Perth metro area. In terms of more rainfall, though, we do have some later on this week. Thursday, we're going to see another cold front approach the south coastal regions. This one's going to be reasonably strong as well, coming through Thursday evening and easing off by Friday morning. No showers behind it, though. It looks like the damaging wind threat is going to be relatively minimal from a cold front like this. A couple of blustery showers here and there can be expected, but winds should not exceed 70 or 80 kilometres an hour from this cold front. Heavy rainfall, though, is certainly a possibility. Up to 30 millimetres can be forecasted over the next 5 days, at least for the Perth metro area, on top of the 30 to 50 millimetres that is already going to fall today, and that will equate to rainfall accumulations approaching 100 millimetres over the next 5 days before Friday. But yeah, the rainfall will ease off throughout the course of Friday before another big cold front comes through Saturday evening into Saturday night, the later hours of Saturday night actually, and into early Sunday morning. Looks like we've got a really big weather system coming through to the Perth metro area. It will likely be bigger in terms of showers than the weather system that we're seeing today, but the initial cold front shouldn't go severe warned, I don't think, and if it does, it's only going to be severe warned for damaging wind gusts up towards 70 or 80 kilometres an hour. But in terms of rainfall, I mean, it doesn't look like there's going to be an awful lot of rainfall here, maybe about 30 millimetres or so from the primary rain front coming through, and then the shower band behind it, I'd say maybe 10 to 15 millimetres, equating to a total of absolute maximum of 50 or 60 millimetres. In other words, not as much rainfall as what we have received overnight tonight. So the next cold front to come through next Saturday or Sunday, by the looks of things, it's coming through very late Saturday night into early Sunday morning for the Perth metro area. It will be a lot weaker than the one that we have just received, and as such, less rainfall, less winds, less hail as well. I mean, that was something last night, driving in a full-blown hailstorm. Quite dangerous, but still, it looks like that cold front will be a lot more tame than the one that we have just experienced. But still, over the next 10 days, a good amount of rainfall coming through for the Darling Ranges and the Perth metro area. Perth itself expecting a further 100 millimetres into the Darling Ranges. You're looking closer to 150 or 160 millimetres in one or two spots. And then down on the south coast as well, up to 130 millimetres expected there. Between other forecast models, the Access G3 really talking up this next cold front. They're expecting 200 millimetres over the next week to fall, and a lot of that will actually be falling next Saturday. You can see that in the forecast here as this cold front comes through Sunday afternoon. Very heavy rainfall can be expected. I think the Access G3 just has a big thunderstorm bias here, and as a result, I would not be putting my money on this weather system coming through like the Access G3 is saying, but still, there is still the chance of heavy rainfall, but I don't think it's going to be as heavy as the front that we have just received. In other words, rainfall here is likely substantially overestimated. I mean, 200 millimetres up in Jurien Bay this time of the year, even this time of the year, is quite a lot of rainfall, and I don't think it will be happening. But still, I mean, just more rainfall, more steady rainfall will be more than welcome into the wheat belt. I think Perth, we've had enough of this torrential rainfall. We've seen a lot of ground scarring already, especially up in the hills, and even inland as well. We've had some pretty significant, very heavy rainfall, and it shows in the ground. The topsoil has suffered pretty heavily as well. But hey, at least this record-breaking drought has broken, and we've had 100 millimeters, or in fact 150 millimeters in a very short amount of time. I guess it is good news because we have had some rainfall and things are just finally starting to turn green now. It is much needed water for our dams as well, but this much rainfall certainly was not asked for. So unfortunately, it is a land of extremes. I told you guys that winter was going to come. It was going to come sharp, it was going to come violent, and it has. It's done exactly what it was forecast to do, and it looks like it's going to be a short, sharp winter, just the reminder there. But yeah, I mean, drought conditions, they've well and truly eased to the southwest corner of Western Australia. Just a few more areas of drought as you get towards the Euclid district around Esperance, still suffering from extreme drought conditions, but they should ease off over the coming couple of days. And by next week, we're looking at much wetter conditions across Western Australia, and that drought will continue in Victoria and South Australia. Unfortunately, those drought conditions, they really need to be broken. There is really limited rainfall on the cards for the south parts of South Australia and also for Victoria too. They just haven't had the rainfall that they needed yet, and it doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon either, unfortunately. But yeah, that is the long-winded catch-up in terms of weather for Western Australia. Big-time cold front swept through, a lot of rainfall, and more rainfall as well on the cards. Hopefully it just eases off slightly. I mean, some drier conditions today would be more than welcome. The fact that we're going to be receiving a lot less rainfall than once was estimated, that is some great news indeed. However, still, at least 20 millimeters is expected to fall today, so make sure you are taking extreme care on those roads. Leave me a weather report for your location in the comment section down below. That lightning display was crazy, wasn't it? Perth residents, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was a crazy lightning display, and it certainly was one that can be remembered, that's for sure. But I mean, just taking a look at this picture for Australia, we've got massive cold fronts on either side of the nation. The West Australian one's certainly very strong indeed, and the south coastal parts are in for it with this shower band that's coming through here. However, the other big story is, of course, that Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria weather system that's finally moving through and moving away from the coast at this time. Still, just to recap, a little bit of heavy rainfall expected over New South Wales today, and also down towards Tasmania and Victoria too. Looks like New Zealand as well could be in for some heavy rainfall over the next 10 days too, with the passage of this low pressure system moving through to the area. But it actually looks like a lot of the rainfall is going to be holding itself over the Tasman Sea at this time. There'll be more coverage on that system that's expected to form offshore from New South Wales on Thursday and Friday as well in tomorrow's update. Just don't have the details out right now on the forecast, and it is still an uncertain forecast. But in other news around Australia, looking calm up in the north. There's a little bit of rainfall here and there, but really not too much on the cards. A lot of rainfall in the southern parts of this Western Australia though, and a lot of rainfall for New South Wales and Victoria. But really, what is new there? Hopefully conditions do start to dry off, because they do need their ground to be dried out, especially up in far north Queensland as well. It's great to see some dry weather up there. But that is all from me today. I do hope you've enjoyed the update. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. I could not run the show without them. Their support is greatly appreciated. If you want to get your name mentioned at this part of the video as well, click the join button down below and select the channel sponsors button, and that will get your name up on this screen. But thank you so much for watching the video to this point. Like and subscribe, of course, and give me a weather report for your location in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.